Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, so today I wanted to talk about CJ So Cool and I want to talk about Life of Royalty, but I mainly want to talk about CJ So Cool more so like a cautionary tale. So, in my lifetime, I was able to observe two friends. They were best friends. And what I noticed with these two friends is one friend always made better decisions than the other friend. So one friend consistently made poor decisions and the other friend made better decisions. And as a result, one had a better life and one had a worse life. So, take for instance, the first friend stayed with their high school sweetheart. The other friend that made poor choices dated multiple people. The first friend finished college and has the same career for like over 20 years. The other friend is still trying to seem like they're trying to find their career path. And I feel like that kind of reminds me of like CJ So Cool and Life of Royalty. It's like people really don't like royalty because they realize that she's the friend that makes the better choices. Like she's consistently has made better choices than CJ. And I feel like that's really where the hate stems from, is that they know that without royalty, he's going to fail out in terms of life because he's the friend that always consistently made poor choices. It even shows why he had them as a family. Instead of saving money, instead of buying property, he was gambling, he was taking out unnecessary loans, instead of being faithful, he was cheating. Everything that happened to him or the way he's ending up could have been avoided if he made just better choices. And what is his ex partner doing? She's booked and busy. She actually has verifiable streams of income. All his supporters that come make their way to my channel, they always saying, "Oh, CJ has these other streams of income. He's just not relying on this or that." But they can never tell you what those streams of incomes are. It's imaginary. And I feel like that's where a lot of the hatred towards royalty comes from. Like on a subconscious level, his fans understand without her, he fails because she literally makes better life decisions than he does. And, he should really be looked at as a cautionary tale. Don't be like him. Don't be the bad friend that makes all the bad choices and ends up in a bad way. At the end of the day, it's clear that, one friend is going to rise or they rose because they made good decisions, and the other friend is going to inevitably fail because they made all the wrong decisions. It's like the tale of two friends. And a lot of people live a life like CJ. They make nothing but poor decisions, and they literally could have been like the other friend and made nothing but good decisions. But instead, they were more in tune to chaos and bad choices. And that's all it's about at the end of the day. A person that makes good decisions versus a person that makes poor decisions. And CJ has constantly made poor decisions that have led him to where he is right now. Whether people want to admit it or not, his life is steadily going down, and his ex's life is going up. And it's unfortunate because people they want to be mad and have misplaced anger towards his ex when really all they're mad about is that CJ keeps making these poor decisions. Like I love how people like B4 reacts when the whole royalty accountable for everything she does. But at the end of the day, royalty makes better life decisions overall than CJ does. So, like that's why I be sitting back like, y'all got to be careful who y'all listen to because a lot of these people are idiots. Just because you can speak clearly and not cuss every second does not mean you're smart. Does not mean you have life experience. Does not mean you know what you're talking about. You know, dude is not very bright. I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of his opinions are biased, and You could tell he doesn't really have any life experience. He looks kind of young. He don't be know what he's talking about. He just know he don't like royalty. So anyway, he's just like a lot of his supporters. They have misplaced anger, and they really just need to be mad at that. He keeps making poor decisions. Everything he has done has been a bad decision. You could look at his early decisions in his life up until now. He has consistently always made poor decisions. And, instead of him being angry with his ex family and angry at this or angry at that, he needs to examine himself and why he keeps making poor decisions and make better decisions. If you got mental health problems, go get help. If you got gambling problems, go get help. Instead of spending money unnecessarily, save money. Instead of trying to hurt your ex and her family because that's the only way you feel that you can come up, do something else. Learn more skills, hobbies, and habits that can make you money. This man needs to stop making poor decisions because if he keeps going down the road he's headed down, he's headed for disaster, you know? And people need to admit that if you actually care about this fool and, encourage him to make better life choices or he's going to fail out of life. So at the end of the day, we're going to see his ex rise and we're going to see him fall if he continues down the path he's going. You know, he's either going to end up dead or in jail. So, yeah, that was my analysis to tell the two friends. Of course, Royalty was the good friend that always made good life choices, and CJ is the bad friend that always made poor life choices. And, people say what they want about his ex, but she makes better choices. She's seeming to try to work on herself and do better, and he's seeming not to even care anymore about life. He's just sitting there playing 2K, you know, ordering up fast food the next day after people crack on his other food, trying to prove that he ain't just poor, and it's really sad. This man continues just to make poor decisions. It's like if he don't have something horrible to say about his ex, he don't got nothing to say at all, you know. And people, they need to just look at that and stop having misplaced anger and be really more, you know, criticizing this man for, basically being a failure and basically not being able to do better in life. You know, that's all. And with that being said, I'm out.